I would like to invite Mr. R. Chandrasekhar, President of NASSCOM, and we are really fortunate to have him participate in this IASA discussion. No, you please. He actually has a flight to catch at 6:50. Okay. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So you know, here Mr. Chandrasekhar has actually taken on a very difficult challenge, taking over NASSCOM at a stage when, you know, we all know that industry has really grown very large, and you know, some of the companies have attained global dimensions. There are companies which are having an annual turnover of you know, anywhere between $5 to $8 billion, which is not small by any standard. But on the other hand, this is also a phase that the industry is maturing, and the incremental growth that you know, we all have been witness to seeing that IT industry. Mr. Naidu is here. He used to publish you know, statistics every year, and how the industry has grown by 100% this year. Then they talked about that, then it came down to 50%, 30%, 40%, and now is the time that the growth of the industry is leading to single-digit figures. Okay, so this is a good sign that the industry has grown large, but the challenge is how do you keep it growing? So as I mentioned, that some of the initial challenges, initial, you know, fruits, which were low-hanging fruits, they have been plucked. Now we have a serious industry. How does it go to the next phase where it can attain world leadership on the strength of innovation? So I would like to hear your thoughts, Mr. Chandrasekhar. What do you think that industry needs to do to climb the next big ladder to create that world leadership?
I think, first of all, you know, what you mentioned is true, that the industry has witnessed an era of tremendous growth, phenomenal growth, and it now accounts for a sizable proportion of the GDP, 8% of GDP, 25% of exports. It's more than $100 billion, and it used to grow at one time at 100%, and then it stabilized at around 30% for a while. Then it dipped when the global recession happened. But now it's climbed up back again to around 12, 13, 14%. Now, having reached such a size and having a footprint in 100 countries and working with almost all the Fortune 500 companies and around the world, the question is, are they satisfied? Are they, you know, complacent? But actually, the situation is that the industry today, having accomplished all of this, is in fact much more hungry and yearning for many things. And is it simply a hunger and yearning for more of the same, or is it something different? And the answer is it's something very different. And that is really where the answer to your question lies, as to what is that they are yearning for and where is it coming from. It's coming from two things. One is that globally, all these clients and companies for whom they have been working have seen what the Indian IT industry can deliver for them. How it is started with, you know, fairly low-level services, but progressively has kept moving up to today. The demand from the customers and clients is not just implementing IT, not just designing an IT solution or a system, but actually how you can plan out the whole transformation of an organization, of a business, of the way of doing business. And in particular, this is even more so with the newer technologies which have come: social media, mobility, cloud, big data, data analytics, and so on. And this is having tremendous seismic impact on the way organizations are structured and the way they do their business. So the demand is no longer to implement an IT solution. The demand is, how do you actually help me to strategize through all of this? How do you help me to rethink the way I deliver the business? So that is one stimulus which is driving the desire of the industry to actually fill that need. The other is slightly different concern, but it is related to this. And that is, while the IT industry has accomplished so much, if you turn around and ask some questions as to how much has it impacted different sectors in the domestic sector, how much has it changed the way, education is delivered, the way healthcare is delivered, the way financial inclusion is done, the way manufacturing is done. And if you look at each of these areas, the answer is not that much. And certainly not commensurate with a country which has an industry, IT industry of this capability and which is doing things all across the world.
True.
So the result is that the industry is still looked at as a sector, like textiles, like automotive, there's IT. Right. But that's not how it should be looked at. It's a horizontal which can actually transform every other sector.
Right.
So the aspiration is to look inward and see how you can accomplish this transformation.
Okay. So what you're saying is that how the industry can really bring about, it's a horizontal expertise which touches lives of every sector that there is and within the country. So inclusive growth, the Charter of Inclusive Growth is one of the agenda that the industry would like to kind of touch upon. And so where does the innovation really, question of innovation, okay? How do you conceive that the innovation element is touching the industry? And I would like to classify this in two different buckets. One is that, the service innovation. We have excelled in the world as the service providers, and the way the service was delivered was really not the way it is being delivered today. Okay? So industry has perfected the art of delivering that. Do you have any certain observations on the service innovations that the industry has already done? And then following that, if you could also comment upon that, how do we, what's the innovation that is going to drive to the next orbit, which is about, say, being in the consulting zone or being in the product zone or a technology or solution zone. So how are these two innovations going to be driven by the industry, your observations?
I think that's a very interesting point that you have raised, because if you look at, for example, how this spread of, for example, the telecom revolution which has happened in the country, there was a lot of innovation which actually happened before the telecom touched 900 million and now approaching 1 billion in the country. Yes, it was not too much of technology innovation, but there was a huge amount of business innovation which happened.
Sure.
All these things of incoming call free and reducing the charges to a level where a completely different price volume equilibrium. So recognizing all these attributes which actually make technology relevant in a country was something which telecom first showed us, that unless you do this, you're not going to reach a point where you touch 1 billion lives, number one. Number two is that if you look at, what part innovation plays in this, a lot of the innovations which come from a developed economy actually look at problems from their perspective, quite naturally. So quite often it is about doing much more with the same amount of money. But when you're looking at India, you have to first drive the price point to a level where it is relevant to so many people. That requires a very different kind of innovation. So the question that has to be asked is, how do you reach a point where you are able to innovate, you're able to transform the delivery of services, picking up the cues from some of this and say, if somebody sitting in a village wants to get a healthcare service which doesn't require him to be actually hospitalized, how can you ensure that this is available to him at a fraction of the cost, maybe at no more than 10 rupees or 20 rupees? Sure. How do you ensure that somebody can transact financially using a mobile phone at a cost of maybe 10 paisa? How do you ensure that people are able to receive education through a device which may not cost more than 15 or 20 rupees in terms of a monthly cost, or maybe in any case a double-digit cost? So these require a very different kind of innovation. And when you are looking at this, then you are looking finally at the end service from 2 points of view. You are looking at it from the point of view of the customer or the client or the citizen, and you are looking at it from the point of view of that particular domain, health or financial inclusion. So you're not talking technology anymore. You're not just talking about IT, or you're not talking about hardware. But to reach that goal, and when you're defining it in those terms, and a term which makes sense to a citizen or to a provider of that service, then it is not solvable just by looking at only the IT part or only the hardware part or one device or one product or one patent. Mm-hmm. That doesn't take you to that solution. So you actually have to look at it end to end.
Right.
This actually would, as we are now seeing, and that's the direction in which the industry is moving, this requires a certain amount of collaboration across domains. Right. How do you work with people who provide, for example, healthcare, right, to define the problem in those terms? Mm-hmm. How do you work with, for example, not just the IT part, but the hardware part? Right. What do you need to do at the level of the devices? And what do you need to do at the level of the IT?
You're talking about a marriage.
Exactly.
Really, so NASSCOM, though it represents, software expertise, and on the other end, IESA is talking about how do we build devices, how do we do semiconductor IP. But point Mr. Chandrasekhar is making is that at the end of the day, people don't, eat chips, or they eat potato chips, but they don't eat semiconductor chips. And, they don't really, software is not something that's touch and feel. It is the real solution, and that's where a cross-disciplinary approach between two big bodies like NASSCOM and IESA makes sense to get the cross-disciplinary. But still, at the end of the day, it is the approach that Remy talked about, that how do you solve social problems and bring it together. Okay? So in this context, I would like to ask you, what Remy also brought out, that here at one end of the spectrum, there are these large enterprises who do have the deeper pockets to invest into innovation, and which is also true in some of the large industries in India. Some of the very successful IT companies, the good news is that they're sitting on several billions of dollars in cash reserves.